Hello and welcome to the Not Another Education podcast, your go-to for great chat, awesome guests and some educational themes. While you're here, don't forget to follow us on Spotify so you don't miss a trick. Becky is joining me today. Becky and her dream team are behind the Twinkl Phonics program. She's going to be sharing some ups and downs of creating the program as well as some of her big plans for the future.
It's been good, really busy, which, the world of Twinkl Phonics seems to be permanently busy at the moment, but we've been doing some really exciting.
It's an exciting time for the phonics team, right?
It is. It's really exciting, and we're getting to do lots of new and interesting things. And next week we kind of kick off a load of training that we're doing in schools. So members of the team get to go into schools and deliver that training, which is really lovely.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like with so many ex-teachers as well, like it's just so, you feel so like lucky to go back into a school, don't you? And kind of do some training. Are they meant to be hiring someone to specifically deliver that, or is it your team who are doing that? What's the idea?
At the moment, it's my production team, so writers and editors on the team, and me as well, and then a few kind of wider editors and writers from across Twinkl who've also kind of volunteered to help with our capacity and also areas of the UK. But yeah, we are recruiting some Twinkl Schools trainers whose job will be specifically delivering the training, helping kind of develop that training as well, and doing some more training things in Twinkl, so kind of more webinar content and adding to our online learning platform, which is kind of there already, but yeah, providing more content on there. It should be amazing.
Do you guys have an app yet, or like what's the deal with that? Like, do you have something that kids can use?
We do have an app, but at the moment I manage an app, but the Twinkl Phonics suite doesn't quite align with the Twinkl Phonics program.
Right, I see.
It's based on letters and sounds, so it's great for schools who kind of are still using letters and sounds and might continue to do that, and for parents to dip in and out of and things, but it's not something that we kind of promote alongside the phonics scheme at the moment. But we are hoping that we're going to get an aligned app in the future, which would be an amazing addition to the phonics
Absolutely, scheme. Fingers crossed. Everything's so digitalized now, isn't it? It's just, it's so good, isn't it? If schools can pick up like an iPad and literally just like get the kids to do something in practice for 5 minutes or so, or
definitely, and just those extra
homework,
games that they can be using. Parents love an app, don't they? We saw massive spikes in app downloads when children were at home during COVID.
Yeah, sure. It makes sense, doesn't it? It makes total sense.
Yeah, and part of that is kind of apps kind of help you and guide you through some of the learning, don't they, when you might not necessarily be expertise in it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in that area.
Do you watch The Apprentice?
I don't.
I was going to say, a couple of weeks ago they made like a learning app, and it was teaching kids how to brush their teeth. It's like a reward game, honestly, Becky. Just basically, if you watch the episode, it's everything not to do. So it's so bad.
Do you think app creation is much more complicated than like I think most people think? You kind of go, oh yeah, make an app. Everyone's got an app. It's really easy, and then like start the process and like, oh no, like actually there is an awful lot of kind of intricate coding, and yeah, it's quite easy to make a very bad app, but actually making a really good user-friendly app it takes a lot of very clever people lots of time.
Yeah, it does. I mean, these apps were literally just like, they're like, oh, you can gain and I've worked in gaming before, and I was like, no one would play this. No, because apparently you can get like kids' toothbrushes that like also come with an app, and I'm like, well, if they're just going to be watching that every night, like I mean, we got a really like fun toothbrush for Charlie, and then he's just like not interested in it. So it shows how short the attention span of kids is, like that of that age anyway. So it's so hard, isn't it? Like you say, creating an app that sustains and builds on learning as well as making them feel like they're also not learning and just kind of having fun. It's a huge challenge. And in your team, do you guys have coders in your production team, and what does it look like?
No, we don't. So Twinkl kind of has a central team that kind of works on apps. So it'd be accessing their time. So that is a bit of a balance that you've got to, justify why they should spend time on your app compared to like other people's apps and things, because there's some really amazing apps that Twinkl has. From the kind of symbols app for picture communication exchange cards, and they've got like ones for helping with times tables and things. There's some really fun ones out there, like and the AR one.
Oh yeah,
the Learn and Explore.
Darshna heads up that one. It is cool. I am sorry about this. I have let go. He's got my boot. I'm puppy sitting today. Yeah, I'm puppy sitting. Do you like dogs?
Yes, we've got a dog. She's currently she was asleep under my desk, but she's just gone into the bedroom, and she asked for me the curtains weren't open yet, so she came and got me and asked me to open the curtain so she can sit in the sun.
Wow, what dog have you got?
She's a Romanian rescue dog.
They're so cute.
So she's a real like mixed breed. Yeah, so she's got kind of the colouring of kind of a German Shepherd, kind of the black and the tan.
Yeah,
but she kind of looks much more like a kind of terrier, with like the floppy ears and things. But then she's also got this like some whippet or lurcher or something, so she's really kind of like narrow and at her back and kind of that more kind of pointed face.
Well, that's what I kind of imagined, because I met someone on our walk last week and they had a Romanian rescue dog. So I thought that was almost like a breed, like a Romanian. Do you know what I mean? Like a Pomeranian.
Yeah, they seem to kind of, yeah, they do. There are often quite a lot of similarities in them, because they have this kind of mix of the sheepdog and the terrier. That is the general mix of what Romanian rescue dogs are, and then you kind of get a little bit of variety if there's kind of been other dogs that are kind of mixed in there. So they're not normally quite as kind of petite as our dog Sheba is, because she's got that kind of like lurcher in her. But there are quite a few dogs that look quite similar to her, in terms of that terrier and sheepdog.
I mean, I wouldn't even know we've always had rescue dogs, but I don't even know how you go about rescuing a Romanian like stray. How do you, like, do they bring them over? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so she was the rescue organisation that we rescued her from are kind of based in Romania, so they do a lot of kind of rescuing of puppies and things. And then so we didn't meet her before we adopted her, we just kind of saw pictures and things, and then had to go through the kind of selection process of them making sure that we were kind of suitable to adopt a Romanian rescue dog, because it's not always the easiest thing. They do have their kind of own challenges. And then so that she was rescued at like 5-6 weeks. She was really, really tiny.
Oh.
And then she had to wait in Romania in their kennels to have all of her kind of vaccinations and things, and she was also neutered before she kind of came over.
Yeah.
So she had to be old enough for that to happen. And then when she was 4 months, they pop her on a van with other Romanian rescue dogs, and then they spent 3 days travelling from Romania to the UK, and she got dropped off at our door.
Oh, it's like a proper process then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And she's settled in really well now.
Yes, definitely. She loves it here. Yeah, she can be a little bit barky at times. A few like territorial issues, but
Yeah. Sure. Well,
she's
that'll be the
really,
terrier in her. That'll be like a terrier
yes.
strain. And just like a little, they have like small dog syndrome, don't they? Where they think they're like far bigger than what they
She
are.
does, except she's that bit bigger and that bit louder, so it's that bit more piercing.
Oh no, that's not good. I mean, Clifford is, come here. Don't eat that. Come here. He's had he doesn't want to. He's camera shy now. He's like a fox red. So
Aw,
that's why you're called Clifford.
yeah.
Always getting up to something, and I'm not happy about what you're chewing under that desk. It doesn't look good. But yeah, I love animals. I could talk about animals all day. Everyone seems to have animals. Are you in the pets group?
I think so, yes. Yeah, there are a lot of pets at Twinkl.
Hence Twinkl Pets. There's like a whole thing about it,
Yes,
isn't
it is.
It's
Yeah.
kind of mad, isn't it? But anyway, let's get on to the reason you're here, Becki. But yeah, it's hugely great to have you on the show. You are the center of this whirlwind that is Twinkl Phonics.
I am, yes.
And I feel like a whirlwind is a really good way to describe that, because
Definitely.
it's something that, I know you guys have been on such a process and such a journey with this, and I know you and your team are immensely proud of it, and I just want to give you the chance to show it off. And also for those people who are wondering, how do they do that? A little peek behind the curtain, maybe. I think that'd be really, really cool. But let's start with you, Becki. So, a lot of people in Twinkl, we're ex-teachers, aren't we? I'm an ex-teacher.
Yes.
Are you?
Yes.
I think you are, right?
Yes, I am. I am, yes. Yeah.
And what were you kind of doing before life at Twinkl?
So before life at Twinkl, I was an early years teacher. So the last school that I worked in nursery, but I've also worked in reception in year one, and then kind of done supply across the other year groups. And yeah, I'm from a long line of teachers. My mum's a teacher,
Oh my gosh.
and all of my grandparents were teachers. So I always said I was never going to be a teacher because of that. But it was something that was clearly in my blood, and I kind of did various volunteering with children and things. And when I wasn't kind of working with children, I really missed it. And so, yeah, after doing my degree at university, was like, I think teaching is the right place for me. So yeah, did my PGC in primary education, and then it wasn't necessarily deliberate to end up in early years, but it's where I ended up, and it's definitely where, like, it was the place that I love to be. I love that early development and like teaching those kind of foundational skills that kind of get built on kind of throughout their learning journey, but kind of really introducing those fundamentals is what I really loved.
I love that. I mean, I kind of come from like teacher stock, but also not, I guess, because my sister, she's a teacher, and she's worked her way up to be head teacher, and she's retiring to be an Ofsted inspector. Which is weird because she's so nice. Not that Ofsted inspectors aren't nice, but she's so nice. So I'm hoping I think she's due to come on the show actually when she starts, and she's going to give us like a little peep into Ofsted life. And why so grumpy?
That'd be really interesting.
Yeah, why so grumpy, Ofsted? So yeah, it'll be good. But yeah, my mom, she always wanted to be a teacher. My granddad told her that there's no money in it. This is like in the 60s, 70s. And obviously there still isn't any money in it. But it's kind of that person you are, isn't it? I feel like whoever's going into teaching for money is very disillusioned, because you kind of have to be this person who just wants the best for people. You just have to be this like really lovely, caring and kind person, and also do like a million other things and be a great multitasker. It's such a diverse role, isn't it?
It is. You have to be an expert in everything, particularly at primary school. There's such a range of things that you have to teach. And I think, particularly in early years, you're a surrogate parent for those years, that time that they're at school. And so, being kind of kind and caring, and is a key part of that role.
Yeah, I mean, I always taught year 6. That was like where my main experience was, and then I got put into year 2. And it was a year 1, year 2 class. They combined it halfway through the year. It was like a number of different reasons why, but essentially I ended up phonics thrust upon me, because we always did like support for spelling, which was like, I before E except after C, and this is what suffixes and prefixes look like, and all this sort of stuff, which you're hoping by that point you're not teaching such discrete phonics in that sense. But it was like eye-opening to me, like teaching phonics. It was like such a different experience to what I'd ever had. And when I taught phonics, there wasn't anything that good or engaging out. Like the read write ink stuff wasn't really around then, and well, if it was, it wasn't any of the schools that I was in. And any like the cute like little graphics or anything, and basically things that kids like. So you were having to create your own. So the idea that now there's like a whole offering for this at Twinkl is like insane, right? So we'll touch on it a little bit about what the actual program looks like, but with phonics in school at the moment, you were saying earlier about your team are going out to do some training. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel a little bit like if I had to teach phonics tomorrow in a school, I don't quite know what a classroom looks like post-pandemic, but also I've not taught in 5 years. So I'd find that quite an alien experience for me. I mean, kind of what have your team found that, what does it look like in schools? Is it still as fun? Is it still as bubbly? Like what's the ideal?
I think phonics in schools at the moment is in a little bit of a state of transition and flux, because obviously, previously lots of schools were kind of doing their own thing, using kind of letters and sounds as the base, and they might have kind of developed their like own whole school planning, or teachers might have just kind of been doing their own thing in classrooms. Some people are maybe have been using programs for a while, but that's definitely not kind of what the majority of people have been doing. And then this kind of last year or so, Ofsted and the Department for Education have kind of both released guidance saying kind of the best way to guarantee that phonics is being taught in the best way possible is through a program, and then kind of open this validation process that Twinkl Phonics has been through. And it's kind of shifted how everybody's kind of feeling about phonics, and they are starting to look at programs much more. I know we had schools who were using Twinkl Phonics prior to this, but there weren't loads of schools who were necessarily using it all in its entirety.
Yeah.
People were kind of dipping in and out as they kind of needed specific lessons on specific sounds. And not a lot of people knew that Twinkl Phonics even existed, really. They knew that Twinkl did phonics resources, but not that they had this phonics program.
Yeah, like a whole dedicated offering that's like multifaceted.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so this has kind of massively increased the visibility of Twinkl Phonics, but also programs in general. The validated list currently has around 20 schemes on it, but that's going to be growing because that validation process is still ongoing. And I think what's really nice about there being a variety of schemes is that you're getting all those things that a program offers in terms of kind of consistency of approach and kind of training and guidance, so that you know exactly what to teach. But having a range of schemes on the market means that you can kind of look at which ones best suit your class and your children. And, if they need something that maybe is a little bit more stripped back because kind of overstimulation issues and things, you can kind of go for that. Or if you need something that does have the multisensory approach with the actions and the mnemonics and things, then they're there. There's kind of an offering of everything, and because people are competing with each other, they're trying to make their stuff that little bit different. And so yeah, I think it's quite, it might be, teachers might be feeling a little bit stressed about the idea of having to choose a program and making sure they get the right one, but I think also there's a lot of opportunity in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as educators, we see it as very, I guess this is something that we have to do, and like, let's make it the best we can make it. But ultimately, the whole base of this is so kids can read and write. Like, this is like one of the most, if not the most important skill that kids need to have, because without that, I mean, you know what's funny? I remember having a traveller child in my year 6 who like literally could not read or write, like completely illiterate, which is heartbreaking in a way, but let's work with it. And seeing him absorb phonics and just, it's so empowering, isn't it? When, especially for teachers, teaching assistants or parents delivering phonics, if any parent is wondering why they should be doing it, well, it's so your child can read their favorite stories, so your child can understand the world around them. Surely, like that would be my concept of it. Like, what about you guys? Is that similar to how you see it?
Yeah, I think empowering is a really great word to describe what phonics does for children, because the systematic synthetic approach means that very, very quickly children have a few sounds that they can use and apply to words, and so from like that first week of teaching, they can read words. They might still be developing those kind of blending skills and things, so need a little bit of support. They recognize the s at in sat. And so they don't have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks to be able to achieve something with the knowledge and skills that they're gaining. They can do that right from the beginning. And even as adults, we're coming across new words all the time, aren't we? Or less familiar words and things, ones that maybe we've just heard rather than read, and we can still apply those phonics skills to those words. If you've got that knowledge from being 5 years old, you're going to keep on using it throughout your life, and therefore when you come across a new word, you're not necessarily going to be daunted by I know how to like approach this and have a go at reading it and or spelling it, and so it's definitely like empowerment is one of the key things kind of behind phonics. It's equipping them to kind of tackle any words that they kind of face in their life.
What's sort of the first step for parents to get their kids interested in language? So for me, I don't know if this is right, by the way, because I only have one 3-year-old. So this could be not right, but any book he wants to read, I essentially just like let him. I mean, like, within reason, he's not going to be reading like Lord of the Rings or anything. But if he wants to read something that I might have given to like my year 4s, then I'm gonna read it to him, as long as it's nothing too scary or anything mega inappropriate, which I'd like to think there wouldn't be if I would have done it with year 4. I kind of let him. So he asks about the words, and he asks about what does that say, and he started saying like, does that say my name? And first we thought that was quite cute, but we were like, actually we should stop saying yes, because his name begins with a C, like Charlie, and that's not what that is. That's not the letter. So quickly we realized that's probably building like quite a bad misconception in his like phonetical journey. So I mean, how do we start? Is that bad, or like, is that okay to do?
No, I think definitely like exposure to books and reading is like one of the most important like things, because if children have already kind of developed that love of reading by being read to by their parents, then they're going to want to be able to do it too.
Sure.
And so kind of, reading books, as long as they're kind of appropriate, any books to them, if they ask a question, if there's a way that can kind of be answered with a book, like that's great. And then in terms of kind of them starting to recognize the letters and things, a great way of doing that is kind of the words that so it's called environmental like text.
Okay.
So most children know that the McDonald's sign says McDonald's. They can't read that says McDonald's, but they see that sign and they know that's McDonald's. And
can I have a Happy Meal? Is normally the question.
Exactly. And like going around the shop, they probably, the box of Cocoa Pops that says Cocoa Pops, and kind of exposing them to that and pointing out that and talking about those kind of things. They start to associate like written text with meaning, and that's kind of the start of that journey of knowing that words on a page kind of mean something. Pointing out kind of if he's kind of recognized, or he's starting to recognize that his name begins with a C, kind of recognizing that in other words, that it might not be the same word, but that's the C that's in your name.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's a great way of kind of starting it. Because I think parents can kind of get a bit bogged down in making sure that they kind of teach children the alphabet and things, and a lot of that will kind of be done by school. It's really developing that love of reading and text, and like if you're writing a shopping list, like they can write their own shopping list. It might just be squiggles on a page, but they're wanting to explore writing and those techniques and things, that then when they start to actually learn the letters and stuff, they'll then want to kind of carry on that learning and practicing it, because they've got that enthusiasm.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole start of it, isn't it? You hear so many kids, well, probably older, like I'd say year 6 plus, saying, "Why am I learning this?" But phonics is not really something you can kind of put that to, because it's so based in everything, from, like you say, from the environment you exist in to the books you read at nighttime. It's not, and some kids, all right, they don't like reading for whatever reason, but it's making it about, we tend to do like a story at bedtime, and there must be about 6 or 7 that we end up reading, and sometimes you think, oh God, like it's so tired. Like but then I'm like, no, I really should. So I always try my best if I can accommodate it. And I think that, making sure that, and you're funny you say the McDonald's thing, because that actually happened to us yesterday. He does.
It's always the one that you don't want them to recognize.
Stupid consumerism. What have you done to my child? But yeah, it's like, okay, fine. At least you know what an M looks like, be it golden or whatever. But yeah, they're very clever, whoever came up with that. I watched the McDonald's film like ages ago. Like, I don't know what it's called. I can't really remember. But basically the story of McDonald's. With Michael Keaton in, and I was just like, God, what a terrible story, but I really want a cheeseburger. So bad, isn't it? So bad. But yeah, let's go back to Twinkl Phonics anyway. None of this McDonald's talk anymore. So if somebody is looking at essentially buying into the whole program that they picked the program to do, Twinkl Phonics, I mean, I know how awesome it is. I really, really like it. And, we did a little bit in my old job with phonics, but they hadn't quite got it there. And I really feel like Twinkl have nailed it in that sense. I'm not being biased, because I'm not in your team, so I could technically. No. So but I do really like it as a a parent, and also if I was a teacher, I think it is really good. So what can people expect from it? Like what does the offering consist of essentially?
So Twinkl Phonics uses a story-based approach to kind of wrap its phonics lessons in. So there's a lesson PowerPoint for each lesson for levels 2 to 6, and they kind of revolve around the Twinkl Phonics family, who have Kit and Sam, the twins, at the heart of them.
Aww.
And Kit and Sam go on kind of adventures in the kind of early levels. It's much more kind of familiar settings. A lot of them are kind of based at home or at school. And then kind of later on, they acquire some magic objects, so a magical watch, a magic map, and a magic book, and they allow them to go on these amazing adventures where they can kind of go back in time, they can go to different locations around the world, they can go and visit storybook characters.
Oh my God, that sounds insane. It sounds so cool to do that, right?
Yeah, and like levels 4 to 6 as well, the stories kind of go on for the whole week, so you kind of get that plot, and also the children want to carry on the learning each lesson. And these stories are really brief; they don't take up much time in the lesson. They're kind of designed for the they're just a kind of a couple of lines of text with a picture, kind of a few slides, which they kind of the teacher or whoever's delivering the phonics lesson kind of reads, but they really provide this hook into the learning that then when they come to the teach section, that the story's been about an orange, and then they're learning with and there's an orange mnemonic, that kind of picture to kind of prompt them, to remind them that that the letter O makes the O sound.
Yeah.
And there's an action of like squeezing an orange to, again, like that more physical thing that children can kind of remember. And so when they're kind of recapping the sounds, they can squeeze the orange too, like so that, yeah, it's that another thing that kind of helps commit it to their long-term memory. There's a letter formation rhyme to remind, which is linked to the mnemonic, to kind of remind them of how to write it. There's songs as well, which are kind of optional, but you can, again, that's a musical element of reminding the children about that sound and kind of consolidating it in their brains. And then when you move into the practice activities, they're all kind of around the story as well. So in the caterpillar lesson, I think the caterpillars have kind of eaten words into the leaves, and so you've got to like read the words that they've left, and so it just adds that little bit of context. And then the apply, which is either like reading or writing a caption or sentence. Again, that's kind of heavily linked, and it's normally kind of discovering like a bit of prediction as well, kind of, oh, this has happened, what do you think Sam said to Dad about it? Like, and if it's writing, there kind of be a picture to prompt them, and there's also an example sentence, so that could be a dictate, done as a dictation, or the children could kind of create their own sentence from that picture prompt. Or if it's reading, they kind of read the sentence, and then the picture will appear to check that they've kind of read it for the meaning as well as decoding those words.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's all kind of this. I think what that all means is that the children find it really exciting and engaging, and want to do that phonics learning and carry on lesson to lesson. That they, even though it follows a very repetitive structure, there's that interest because there's a different story every time.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like I know the answer to this, but you remember when you were a teacher and you have like these phonics decodable books, but they're really dated, they're really old, and the stories are just like, I don't know, they just don't really speak to children. Like, especially,
No.
if you imagine a child who is now in year one, they probably haven't been to the beach with Granny because they've been locked up for the last 2 years of their life, with the pandemic or whatever. And, these books, I remember the last school I worked at, it was a really small school, and kind of going through as responsible for like I was responsible for like reading. We split literacy coordinator or English coordinator. And I was going through all these books and just like, oh my God, they're so old and so terrible and so dull. And, having phonics that's rooted in a story that is exciting and engaging, to me, it doesn't really matter if like you say, the process is necessarily repetitive, because by that point, the children are looking forward to the next story, the next little bit in the series of these characters that they're now invested in, right? So it does kind of make for this almost like extra leg of literacy. And for me, I've the number of phonics people I've sort of spoken to, there's always this ongoing debate whether phonics should be just like taught completely discreetly, as in, right, we're doing phonics for 20 minutes before English, or should it be part of the English lesson? Do you have like a preference on what should be done?
I think at the moment, with the reading a reading framework came out from the Department for Education last year, which kind of talks about all aspects of reading and developing lifelong readers and children. And I think in Key Stage 1 and early years, kind of phonics needs to be interwoven with the rest of English, and I think that's reflected in the amount of time that they've suggested spending on it, that they've suggested spending an hour on phonics a day. But that actually, because of how much phonics is their English teaching at that level, that kind of makes sense, because you want to give them opportunities to be practicing writing, sentences with multiple sentences with that as appropriate, and reading slightly more extended texts and things. And you don't have that time if your phonics is 20 minutes. You can make sure that you are doing all of those skills, but you're only going to be able to read a few words, like one sentence. Like, they're going to write a couple of words, write one sentence. And having that extra time allows that kind of those extended practices to be able to happen.
Yeah, because when I've seen some of the words that like year 6 were having to learn as part of the statutory word list in the curriculum, there was very few opportunities for them to actually like use it in their writing, and then they kind of forget about it until they get home and they practice it, and then there's like a spelling test. I used to be quite uncomfortable with that format, so having it integrated feels quite natural to me in a lot of ways. And I mean, kind of talking around the production of Twinkl Phonics, and I mean, congratulations again. I know I've said that about 10 times to you, but congratulations again for it being DFE approved, which is just huge. What were sort of the highlights and challenges of you creating this of your team? It seems like it was quite a process for you guys.
We started the process of creating Twinkl Phonics in 2017, and I would say that while it's a complete scheme, actually we're nowhere near kind of finished creating the offering that we want to have ultimately. So it's definitely been a journey. I think particularly at the beginning, because the PowerPoints are story based, it required a lot of illustration time.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
And yeah, there was one point in when we were kind of, before we were launching the scheme in 2018, that we had every Key Stage 1 illustrator in the company working on Twinkl Phonics. It was pretty intense.
Oh, wow.
And there was a lot less illustrators back then, but still, it was a lot of people working to make it happen. But yeah, there's been a lot of kind of research and time spent kind of working out the best practices, what we've taken lots of the really great things that were in the letters and sounds document that people loved, but looked at where maybe it could have given a bit more guidance and a bit more structure. I think particularly when you get to phase 5 and phase 6 of letters and sounds, there's not that same teaching progression past kind of teaching those alternative pronunciations kind of in those first 4 weeks of phase 5. After that, it's very kind of vague guidance around alternative pronunciations and spellings and things, and teachers and schools kind of have had to go off and do their own thing. And so we looked at that and have kind of broken it down so that there's a much, every week has 1 or 2 sounds that are being introduced, and actually we've slowed down that progression. So rather than keeping the same pace that you have in those earlier levels or phases where they're learning 4 sounds a week, we've slowed it down to learning 1 or 2 sounds a week. And because at that point, because they're not being introduced to the A sound for the first time, they already know in A, as in the AI, actually they need to learn the AY, the A split digraph, and how do they know which one of those to use in which word. And so having that longer time spent on it, really solidifying using it for reading, really solidifying using it for writing, how to know which words use which sound, children become much securer overall in those. We've kind of found, and so that is one of the key things that went into the development of that. And then in level 6 as well, kind of providing some structure with the suffixes and things that are introduced there, and the less kind of common spelling patterns and stuff.
Yeah.
Also, one thing we did with letters so there's kind of all the tricky words that are in letters and sounds, looking at the 2014 curriculum and all the words that children are supposed to be able to kind of read and spell that don't follow those usual rules within that document, making sure that they're all included in the Twinkl Phonics scheme, so that you're not having to use an additional kind of spelling program for that. And actually we had a little bit of space for some extra words, and so which words do we think would be helpful for children kind of expanding their vocabulary and writing more ambitious sentences and things that aren't necessarily decodable, and kind of putting those words in there, things like delicious, that. They if we teach that, then they can then apply it to their writing. So I think that's kind of one of the key things that's kind of gone into that development. And then I think as a team we're continually kind of reflecting on how things are going, and when we've kind of made changes to the content since we first launched it and gone back and gone, we think that this could be done even better. Let's kind of make some changes and tweaks to it to make sure that it's the best it can be for teachers and children.
Sure. I mean, and I mean, it sounds, we just want to make people's lives easier at the end of the day, and
definitely
make kids enjoy it, or at least enable them and empower them, like you were saying earlier. I mean, Becki, it's so awesome for you to join us on the show and just share all the amazing stuff your team are doing. I mean, like I said, I'm not in your team, and even I feel like I've got a bit of a flavour for the absolute tenacity of you guys and how hard everyone's working just to bring this model into schools that, essentially will just make things a little bit easier for educators, a little bit more enjoyable for children, just a better all-round phonics experience, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I have like the most amazing team who are like 150% dedicated to making this like the most effective for children and making the lives of teachers easier. Most of them are ex-teachers and know all of those challenges and draw upon all of that experience when they're creating the resources. And they've done such an amazing job with all of the content that they've created.
And that's the driving factor, isn't it? That's the drive behind the Twinkl machine that is Twinkl Phonics.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Becky.
Thanks for listening to the show today. See you soon. Bye.